Hello students, Assalamu alaikum. This is Moiddin Ahmed Sharif. Today we are going to see about locomotion and movement. So this is your unit 4 chapter 9. So in locomotion and movement we are going to see only about human locomotion, or you can take it as animal locomotion. So in this we will see about the skeletal and muscular systems and how it has been organized. So I hope that in your smaller classes and in your lower classes you would have learned about the skeletal system, and you have a rough idea how it will look like. So you must have learned about the uh, vertebral column, ribs, cranium, limbs, and how it is been and how it will function and how it will move and how it provides the basic mechanism for the movement of the organs of our body like legs and hands. So in this class we will learn in detail about the locomotion and movement. Yes, so we are going to learn in detail about the locomotion and movement, and it involves studying about human skeletal system and also about the human muscular system. So without the muscles we cannot able to move the joints of our body. Yes, so the muscles, the main functions are movement and support, whereas in the skeletal system its main functions are shape and support, protection and locomotion, and strength. Yes, so this is the concept we are going to see in this lesson. Yes, so have you ever wondered how we can able to voluntarily move our hands and legs, and some muscles they move involuntarily like our eyelids. So what happens and how the brain triggers this action? So it is all because of the enzymatic reactions and the proteins that is involved in these actions. So it is all controlled by the motor part of our brain. So have you ever wondered how a dancer performs dance steps, or how a swimmer skillfully does a butterfly stroke? So have you seen the in Olympics the swimming competition, and there are several ways of doing the swimming. Okay, so there at the same moment most of the parts of our body, muscles and bones are involved in that. Okay, and not only that, even the smaller organisms like amoeba, cilia also does the movement. So what is the difference between a human's movement and a amoeboid movement? So the cells of the human body exhibit three types of movements, namely amoeboid, ciliary and muscular. So some specialized cells in our body like macrophages and leukocytes in blood. So these are the blood cells, and they are cytoskeletal elements like microfilaments. They are all involved in the amoeboid movement. So ciliary movement occurs in most of our internal tubular organs, which are lined by ciliated epithelium. So for example, some of the foreign substances inhaled along with atmospheric air passages over through the female reproductive tract. So these are some of the examples of the ciliary movement. So this type of movements occur in the respiratory passages, genital tracts, which are lined by ciliated epithelial cells. So these are the different types of movements that occur in the cells of our body. So next one is flagellar movement. This type of movement occurs in the cells which are having flagella or whip-like or motile organelle. The sperm cells shows flagellar movement. So normally the sperms are motile in nature and they show the flagellar movement. Next one is the muscular movement. The movement of the hands, legs and jaws, tongue are caused by the contraction and relaxation of the muscle, which is termed as the muscular movement. So these are the different types of movement that occurs in our body. Now we will see about the types of muscles. So the muscles are specialized tissues which are derived from the embryonic mesoderm. So in the embryonic stage they are derived from the mesoderm part of the embryo. So they are made up of cells called myocytes and constitute about 40 to 50% of body weight in an adult. So these cells are bound together by a connective tissue to form a muscular tissue. So these myocytes, these are the cells that forms the muscular tissues. So these muscles are classified into three types, namely skeletal muscle, visceral muscle and cardiac muscles. So the skeletal muscle is also known as the voluntary muscle. The skeletal muscle is attached to the bone by a bundle of collagen fibers known as tendons. So these tendon which makes the skeletal muscles to be attached with the bone. So each muscle is made up of bundle of muscle fibers called as fascicle. Each muscle fiber contains hundreds to thousands of rod-like structures called as the myofibrils that runs parallel to its length. The connective tissue covering the whole muscle is called as the epimysium. The covering around each fascicle is called as the perimysium and the muscle fibers surrounded by the endomysium. They control the voluntary actions such as walking, running, swimming, writing, and hence they are termed as voluntary muscles. So as I asked you before, have you seen swimming? So voluntarily a swimmer must activate all his muscles to perform that swimming. So there are voluntary actions. So only the skeletal muscle or the voluntary muscle helps in that action. Now we will see about the structure of a skeletal muscle fiber. So the skeletal muscles are fibrous in nature because they give more strength. You can see in the picture. So this is how the fascicle looks like. So each muscle fiber is a thin and elongated, most of them taper at one or both ends. Muscle fiber has multiple oval nuclei just beneath its plasma membrane or sarcolemma. You can see the singular unit is called as the sarcolemma in the picture. The cytoplasm of the muscle fiber is called as sarcoplasm. It contains glycosomes, myoglobin and sarcoplasma reticulum. Myoglobin is a red colored respiratory pigment of the muscle fiber. It is similar to hemoglobin and contains iron group that has affinity towards the oxygen and serve as the reservoir of oxygen. So myoglobin serves as the reservoir of oxygen and it has more affinity towards the oxygen. Why? Because only when there is the supply of oxygen, the muscle cells can produce ATP and it can function faster and active. Glycosomes are the granules of stored glycogen that provide glucose during the period of muscle fiber activity. So the glycosomes produce glucose and myoglobin produce oxygen. Because of these two activity, the energy has been produced in the muscles for the movement of the muscles. So along the length of each myofibril, actin and myosin are the muscle proteins present in the muscle fiber. So the myoglobin, glycosomes, actin and myosin, these four things helps in the movement of the muscle. So along the length of each myofibril, there are repeated series of dark and light bands. So there are repeated series of dark and light bands are seen in the myofibrils. So you can see in the picture, a tendon is there, which is the connective tissue which helps the muscles to get attached with the bone. It is in the top left corner. Then there is epimysium, the outer liner, then perimysium, and there is the fascicle, and this fascicle is wrapped by the perimysium, and then under blood vessels are been given. So in this picture you can see along the length of each myofibril there are repeated series of dark and light bands. So the dark A bands are called as anisotropic bands and the light I bands are called as the isotropic bands, are perfectly aligned with one another. This type of arrangement gives the cell a striated appearance. Each dark band has a lighter region in its middle called H zone. H is for Hallus, meaning clear. Each H zone is bisected vertically by a dark line called M line, M for middle, and the light I bands also have a darker midline area called as the Z disc from the German Zweizenside, the disc between the I bands. So the myofibril contains the contractile element, the sarcomere, which is the functional unit of the skeletal muscle. So remember this, sarcomere is the functional unit of the skeletal muscle. A sarcomere is the region of myofibril between two successive Z discs. It contains an A band with a half I band at each end. Inside the sarcomere, two types of filaments are present, namely the thick and the thin filaments. So, in muscle terminology, the cell is called as the muscle fibril or myofibril. So, that is the cells of the muscle, and the plasma membrane will be called as the sarcolemma, and cytoplasm will be called as the sarcoplasm, and the endoplasmic reticulum will be called as the sarcoplasmic reticulum. Okay, yes. So here you can see in the diagram, the filaments will be there, then under the thick and the thin filaments will be there. So the thick filaments extend the entire length of the A band, and the thin filaments extend across the I band and partially into the A band. The invagination of the sarcolemma forms transfer tubules called as T tubules, and they penetrate into the junction between the A and I bands. So there are dark bands and light bands. Dark band is called as the A band, called as anisotropic band. Light bands are called as the I bands, and they are called as the isotropic bands. Then H zone will be there, Z disc will be there, and the sarcomere, which is the functional unit, will be present in between them. Okay, yes. So next, so this is the overall structure. Next we will see that the structure of the contractile proteins. You can see in the picture, the contractile or the contraction of the muscle depends upon the presence of the contractile proteins such as actin and myosin in the myofilaments. The thick filaments are composed of the protein myosin, which are bundled together, whose heads produce at opposite end of the filament. So each myosin molecule is made up of a monomer called as the meromyosin. So the meromyosin forms the myosin molecule. The meromyosin has two heads, a globular head with a short arm and a tail. The short arm constitutes heavy meromyosin. The tail portion forms the light meromyosin. The head bears an actin binding site and an ATP binding site. It also contains ATPase enzyme that split ATP to generate energy for the contraction of the muscle. So the myosin helps in the contraction of the muscle. The thin filaments are composed of two intertwined actin molecules. Actin has polypeptide subunit called globular actin or G-actin and the filamentous form of F-actin. Each thin filament is made of two F-actins helically wound to each other. So the F-actin is a polymer of a monomeric G-actins. It also contains a binding site for myosin. The thin filaments also contain several regulatory proteins called as tropomyosin and troponin, which helps in the regulating the contraction of muscles along with actin and myosin. So this is how the actin and myosin are functioning along with the help of the tropomyosin and troponin. So this study of the muscle is called as the myology. So the study of the muscle is called as the myology. Next we will see about the mechanism of muscle contraction. So this theory is called as the sliding filament theory. It was found by Andrew F. Huxley and Rolf Niedergerg in 1954. So they proposed the sliding filament theory to explain the muscle contraction. So according to this theory, overlapping actin and myosin filaments of fixed length slide past one another in an energy recovering process, resulting in the muscle contraction. The contraction of the muscle fiber is a remarkable process that helps in creating a force to move or to resist the load. The force which is created by contracting muscle is called as the muscle tension. The load is a weight or a force that opposes contraction of a muscle. Contraction is the creation of tension in the muscle, which is an active process, and relaxation is the release of tension created by contraction. So this is how the contraction and the relaxation of the muscle occur. So because of the tension created by the load or the weight, contraction occurs. Then the weight or the load is removed, then the muscle relaxes. So the muscle contraction is initiated by a nerve impulse sent by the central nervous system through a motor neuron. So the central nervous system takes in charge of the muscle movement through a motor neuron. So the junction between the motor neuron and the sarcolemma of the muscle fiber is called as the neuromuscular junction or the motor end plate, or it is called as the NMJ. When nerve impulse reaches a neuromuscular junction, acetylcholine is released. So this acetylcholine is the important enzyme. It initiates the opening of a multiple gated channels in the sarcolemma. The action of potential travels along the T tubules and triggers the release of the calcium ions from the sarcoplasmic reticulum. The released calcium ions binds to troponin on thin filaments. The tropomyosin uncovers the myosin binding sites on thin filaments. Now the active sites are exposed to the heads of myosin to form a cross bridge. During the cross bridge formation, actin and myosin form a protein complex called as the actomyosin. Utilizing the energy released from hydrolysis of ATP, the myosin head rotates until it forms a 90-degree angle with the long axis of the filament. In this position, myosin binds to an actin and activates a contraction relaxation cycle, which is followed by a power stroke. So, this is how the neuromuscular junction on the protein molecules such as the myosin helps in the contraction and in the relaxation of the muscles. Yes, so you can see in the diagrams how it has been worked out. Next thing, we will see about the schematic representation of the organization levels of a skeletal muscle. So generally the skeletal muscles has a connective tissue, muscle fascicles, blood vessels and nerves. So only the muscle fascicles or as the cells have several subunits, whereas the connective tissues and blood vessels or nerves have the subunits, but that doesn't come under the topic of muscle. So the muscle fibers has sarcolemma, sarcoplasm, and it has the multiple nuclei. The sarcoplasm has sarcoplasmic reticulum, myofibrils, mitochondria, glycogen granules and myoglobin. So the mitochondria produces ATP, glycogen gives glucose, myoglobin it bonds with the oxygen, sarcoplasmic reticulum it does the function of the chromatin reticulum. Again the myofibril has troponin, actin, tropomyosin and myosin. So these are the proteins that helps in the movement of the muscles. Then there are thin and thick filaments and they form the sarcomere, which helps in the sliding filament theory. Next one is called as the skeletal muscle glycogen analysis. It is called a SMGA, used to measure an athlete's sporting performance by taking the muscle biopsies. So it is a standard method to measure muscle glycogen. Muscle glycogen provides the main source of energy during anaerobic exercise. Furthermore, total glycogen stores within the body also contribute significantly to energy metabolism in endurance type events lasting longer in duration. A single glycogen molecule will contain 5000 glucose units compared to that of the 5000 individual glucose molecule. So that's why glycogens are more important, because they release more glucose molecules. Then a schematic presentation of the muscle contraction. So the muscle contraction is initiated by the signal from central nervous system. Then the release of acetylcholine at the neuromuscular junction causes action potential in the muscle fiber. It triggers the release of the calcium ions from sarcoplasmic reticulum. So the calcium ions combine with troponin and tropomyosin, uncovers the binding sites on actin and initiates contraction. So the myosin binding sites on actin exposed, myosin head binds with the actin. So the myosin head executes power stroke. The actin filament slides towards the center of the sarcomere, which causes the contraction. So the signal from CNS stops, that means the central nervous system stops. Calcium ions are pumped back into the sarcoplasmic reticulum. That Rhopomyosin masks the binding sites and filaments are pulled back to the original position, which performs the relaxation. So all muscles produce movement, but only skeletal muscle is responsible for locomotion, because we will see in coming topic. So till now we are seeing about the skeletal muscles and how they function. Now we will see about the types of skeletal muscle contraction. There are two types of muscle contractions. They are isotonic contraction and isometric contraction. So the types of contraction depend on the changes in the length and tension of the muscle fibers at the time of its contractions. Isotonic contraction, that means same weight or resistance contraction. So in isotonic contraction, the length of the muscle changes but the tension remains constant. Here the force produced is unchanged. Example, lifting dumbbells and weightlifting. Then isometric contraction, that is same distance contraction. In isometric contraction, the length of the muscle does not change but the tension of the muscle changes. Here the force produced is changed. Example, pushing against a wall or holding a heavy bag. The skeletal muscles are further classified into three types. They are slow oxidative fibers, fast oxidative fibers and fast glycolytic fibers. The slow oxidative fibers have low rates of myosin ATP hydrolysis but have the ability to make large amounts of ATP. These fibers are used for prolonged regular activities such as long distance swimming. Long distance runners have high proportion of these fibers in their leg muscles. Next one is fast oxidative fibers, have high myosin ATPase activity and can make large amount of ATP. They are particularly suited for rapid actions. Fast glycolytic fibers have myosin ATPase activity but cannot make as much ATP as oxidative fibers because their source of ATP is glycolysis. These fibers are best suited for rapid intense actions such as a short sprint at maximum speed. Yes, now we are looking at the skeletal system. So now we enter into the topic of skeletal system. So I will give an introduction about the skeletal system and we will see in detail about the skeletal system in the next topic. In the next class. So the skeletal system is constituted by a framework of bones and cartilages. It is derived from the embryonic mesoderm. So the muscles are attached to the bones by means of tendons and they provide necessary force required for the bones of the skeleton to operate as levers. There are three types of skeletal systems. They are hydrostatic skeleton, which is found in soft-bodied invertebrates. It is a fluid-filled cavity encircled by muscles. Example, earthworm. So the next one is the exoskeleton, which is found in invertebrates and it is a rigid hard case present outside the body of animals. Example, cockroach. So the hydroskeleton is found in the soft-bodied invertebrate. The name itself hydro. Hydro means watery, jelly-like. So they are found in the earthworm or such like organisms. So next one is the exoskeleton. So which is found in invertebrates. It is a rigid hard case present outside the body of the animals. Found outside of the body. Example is cockroach. The last one is the endoskeleton, which is found inside the body of vertebrates. It is composed of bones and cartilages surrounded by the muscles. Example, human being. In human beings, the skeletal system is made up of 206 bones and cartilages. It is grouped into two principal divisions, the axial skeleton and appendicular skeleton. The axial skeleton consists of 80 bones and the appendicular skeleton consists of 126 bones. So in exoskeleton are hardened outer surfaces to which internal muscles are attached. You can see in the diagram. So there is a grasshopper. So the increased leg length allows greater speed and power in locomotion. Simple liver systems. Multiple long legs create a potential problem of tripping over one's legs. The centipedes and crustaceans have staggered activity in their legs to prevent tripping. More advanced forms, example crustaceans and insects, fuse segments and reduce the numbers. So this is how the exoskeletons helps them. Next we will see about the endoskeletons. The endoskeletons are internal articulated systems of rigid support consisting of bone and cartilage to which muscles are attached. You can see how the muscles are attached to the endoskeleton. Yes. So totally there are 206 bones and cartilages are the endoskeleton in the human body. There are only two principal divisions. They are the axial skeleton and the appendicular skeleton. The axial skeleton consists of 80 bones and the appendicular skeleton consists of 126 bones. So the function of the skeletal system. So it supports, it gives shape, it gives protection, and they act as a reservoir. They help in locomotion, strength, and also as an hemopoietic issue. So support, it forms a rigid framework and supports the weight of the body against gravity. Next, it gives shape, it provides and maintains the shape of the body. Then protection, it protects the delicate internal organs of the body. Locomotion, it acts as a lever along with the muscles attached to it. So in liver, the muscles and bones work together around joints as system of livers. Liver system of muscles and skeletons can be designed either for power or speed. The ratio of load arm resistance to power arm effort determines the power. A low load arm to power arm ratio provides higher power but low speed, but a high load arm and a to power arm ratio provides high speed but lower power. Okay. So with this your assignment has been attached. So kindly do the assignments and send it to the respective teachers. So thank you guys. See you in the next class. Assalamu alaikum.